In this video I want to show you how we can bring audio into the Digitakt. We touched on this briefly in the last video, which was the MIDI configuration, where we utilised the MIDI output from the Digitakt into the Minitar, and then we brought audio back in to the Digitakt and utilised its MIDI, its audio in capabilities through that. But in this one, in this video, I just wanted to show you how we bring audio into the Digitakt via the two inputs, or we can use the USB, and then I also want to show you how we can resample the internal samples within the device. We'll start off with the audio in. So these two are basically the same inputs. They're not, they're separate inputs, but they are controlled in the same way. So I'm just going to show you one for now. So to get onto the input page, we have to go to the external mixer. So we do that by pressing the function button and then the master button, or the LFO page. You can see it brings us up to the compressor, and you can see next to that we had one of three. So if we just go to another page, that is where we control our levels, and this is the external mixer. So this is where we control what volume we want the incoming signal to be. So at this moment the Minitar set up the audio out of the Minitar, because it's a mono device, meaning it's only got one output. I'm just bringing that into the left channel, so I only need one channel. So this has got set up as a mono sort of left and right channel. If we wanted a stereo input coming in and we utilise the input left and input right, all we need to do is change this to dual mono off, where we can control each left and right on basically one sort of parameter. But because we're just using the input left, we are just going to use that. So we've got input left, input right, pan left, pan right. Delay sends left, delay sends right, reverb sends left, reverb sends right. So on this, I'm just going to increase the volume up, or to take it to just a good value which gives us a bit of headroom, I'm just going to hold function and then turn it. This is going to set the incoming volume to 100, which is, it just gives us that a bit of headroom in case we have any peaks that are too loud for the Digitakt. So I just like to give it that bit of headroom. So now we know we've got our input selected. We're going to go back to his MIDI track, which is track 9, and then we can now hear the audio coming in. I'm just going to make sure my compressor is off as well, which it is, and then from there we can control the Minitar via its volume button. So that's how we get audio into the Digitakt. Now if we're wanting to sample, let's say for example this, we click on the recorder or the direct button. So this is the recording page, and what you'll see on the top here is we have the source. Now we can select different types of sources. We can go from in left, in right, in left and right if it's a stereo information coming in. It does sum it down to mono in the Digitakt, but we've got main left, main right, this is if we want to resample, main left and right if we want to resample, and then we've got USB left, right, left and right, and then the different tracks. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go all the way back to in left, because it's the input left, and if I press the button we'll see that we've got signal. If I click on the in right and I press the button, we'll see that we haven't got any signal, because as input is obviously not in the input right. So just to double check that you've got incoming signal coming in, you can click on that page and check where your input signal comes in. Further to that, what I want to do is just to set the threshold at about 40. So when I arm the track now, when I press this button, it's going to start recording and then I'm going to release it. So if I press yes to arm, the arming feature now is ready to arm. So when the audio, incoming audio signal breaks that threshold, it will start to record. So if I press on my button now, and that's that. What I've done then is I've stopped the recording, it's normalised the track, and then we're presented onto this page where we can trim the start, can really zoom in on the waveform. So that's the start point, and then also the end point. So if we just bring this over, we can see on the main diagram below where the point is. To go from slow scrubbing to fast scrubbing, we just push down on the encoder and then that speeds it up, and then we can get to his point, just give it a bit more, zoom out a bit, just give it a bit more there. So we've trimmed it, that's now been trimmed, and we've saved yes, we want to trim it, or where we've said to trim it, and then we can preview this by pressing function and yes, which that's all right with me. So then we want to save this, so if we go yes, and then we want to rename it now. So to delete what we have is we just hold function and no, and then we press function to bring up the keypad, and then we just type in whatever it is that we want to type in. In this occasion I'm just going to put bass mini, put 1, and then to save it we press yes. It then asks us if we want to assign this to a track. So I will assign this to track, let's say number 6. So that has now been assigned to this track. So when I press this, we're hearing the one shot of that, what we've just recorded. We can then disregard this round, we can discard it, should I say, by pressing function and no, and then that takes us back to the recorder main page, which is all hunky-dory for us to use the next time. So going onto the trigger page, we can basically alter the parameters that we have done to record this. So for example, I want the note time to be held on for the full sample, and then it'll stop. We can see where we are in position wise, and then we can play this chromatically as well. Because we've recorded in a C note value, I know that this note starts on a C, so we can rearrange it from there. So this note here is C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, and so forth. We can play that chromatically, and then we can shape it in whatever way that we choose. We can add bit reduction to it, we could add sample rate reduction, we can add a filter on that frequency and add an envelope to that. And we can maybe add a bit of overdrive. Shape that a bit better. Go down an octave. So we can sculpt the sound further once we've imported it into the Digitakt, and then from there we can make that fit into whatever production we have going on inside the Digitakt. If by any chance we don't like what we've done, all we do is we can basically wipe this page back to its default. So we hold on the amp page and press clear. This then sets each of these pages back to its original state. I won't do this one because we've got a sample loaded in, and then we could basically start again if we ever choose to. Another little tip is if we have basically we don't know what to do, we can press the filter page, for example, and then press yes, and what that does is it randomizes every parameter within that page. Sometimes it comes up with some really interesting stuff. If you like that but you just want to sculpt it yourself, you can do that if you wish. To get back to that, again, we could either hold down that page and press clear, or we can press no, and that goes back to its reloaded original state. So that is how we get audio into the device. We've sampled it, we've put that onto a track where we can play it chromatically. Also on the chromatic mode, whilst I'll say, if we hold down the track button, we can choose a scale, and then we can fold that into a keyboard basically. So every note, instead of it being C, C sharp, D, it will be C, C sharp, D, D sharp, for example. That is in the chromatic mode, with the root note being a C value. We can set that to whatever we want, and then we can basically pick a scale. So if we go minor, or if we pick major, it's up to you if you want to do that or not, but it's there, and it's a good way to bring out the melody in a one shot. If we wanted to record audio in via USB, so let's say we have our digital audio workstation open, what I can basically do then is go to my configuration, my audio preferences, and then I can set that, my output, to the Digitakt, and I want my input to be Digitakt as well. So the input is going to be working through the USB now. So what I've done is I've set up my audio input and output on Live 12 or in my DAW to be controlled, or the audio to run through the USB into this device. What I can do then is just make sure that I'm getting audio. So I've got audio coming in via my USB, and what I want to do is resample something. So if I go back onto this page, and I press a button, I'll see that I'm not getting anything. So what I need to do again is just to turn this all the way to the right until I get USB left and right. So I should now get a signal, which I do. It's quite hot, so I'm going to turn that down. It'll just turn the output down. So I've got my Diva set up in my DAW. I've changed the preferences to send audio out via the USB in the preferences to the Digitakt, and then the audio is going to come back in to my DAW. So I've got Diva set up, and I'm going to play a chord, and I want to record that into here. So what I'm going to do is press yes to arm it, and then once the audio comes in above that threshold point there, it'll start to record. So stop that recording, it's normalizing it for me, and what I want to do is just to trim the back edge, just so that I can see I'm happy with that one. Trim the start, which is there. Press yes to trim. It's now trimmed. We can have a preview. So we've got a nice bright sort of pad going on there. We can then press yes to save, and we could put this as Diva pad 1. Press yes. That's saving. I'm going to assign that, instead of a 6 this time, I'm going to assign it to number 5. We can then now disregard this recording, so it goes back to its original page. So now the Diva sample that we've captured via USB from our DAW is now in the Digitakt. We can then play that on our chromatic keyboard. We can then tune it. We can add bit crush into it. We can take the highs down a bit via a filter, or we can open that filter up within time, a bit more time. And then maybe we could add some sample rate reduction. and that just sounds really good, really good. And because we've extended the sample out, we can see what it's doing. We can hold that on for a good period of time. We can also shape it via our amp. We can add reverb, add delay, or we could have an overdrive. So the Digitakt is a really powerful tool as well to sculpt your samples into something completely different. So, I mean, if I just open that up a bit more. We could use the LFO. I know I'm getting a bit carried away here, but this, I love doing this. We could have the LFO very subtly do a little wobble for us, so like a cassette thing. And you can do all sorts with it, and then also you can put that into the step sequencer, which we'll look at, I think, well, we'll look at that in another video, but that's basically how you record audio within the Digitakt, via the inputs on the back and via the USB. If we wanted to record audio out of this, we can also do that via the USB. So now we have our sample on here, which is sounding, let's say we're wanting that sound, but then we want to take that sound and we want to record that into our DAW. So this goes throughout the whole process of recording audio back in via USB. So on our settings page, if you notice, we put our input as the Digitakt. So what this is going to do, anything that is played, so for example, if I just turn track one, yeah, it's on. If I just play it, that is going to now be recorded via USB into our DAW. So if we are in song mode, which we'll look at in another video, if we have our song selected and we have it all polished and how we're wanting it, and we're wanting to take that song and record it into our DAW for maybe just a little tweaks and a little bit more compression, or whatever we want to do with it, we can do that. So in our DAW, we went to configuration audio, we went to audio input devices, and then we picked Digitakt as our input device. Now our input device on a track, if we open up a track, we can right click here and then click on insert audio track, or we can just press Command and T. Because I've got an audio track up here, we have audio from selection in this menu selection here. So if I click on external input, and then what we want to do is click on 1 and 2, because this is going to be outputting, left is going to be 1 and right is going to be number 2. So if I just play this sample, we'll see that we're getting audio into 1 and 2. If you're wanting to record each track individually, all we do is set up 8 different tracks, and then on this first track we'll notice that 1 and 2, because 1 and 2 is our main output, track number 1 is number 3, so 2 is number 4. So we just set these up so that we can record each track individually, and then when we play our song mode, we start recording in our DAW first and then play the song mode, so then we capture the full song. But we'll look at the song mode in another video. So if I go to our sample, which is on track number 5, and I want to resample that back into my computer, I just down the track, click record, and then stop recording, and then I could increase the volume just to get my start point. If you notice, just go a bit there. Double click on this warp marker to create a warp mark, right click on that and then set 111 here. If I go back out, I can then trim the edge of that to there and the start point to that first warp marker. I can then right click on it, and then I could crop that clip, and that is our clip that we can use to resample the resample. So if I just click on that, so if I wanted to resample that back into here, all I would do is click on this direct button and then click on the sample. And if you notice, we're getting as input left and right. So that is it's a long workaround, but that is how you can utilize the Digitakt to record audio in via the audio inputs on the back or via the USB. We could then resample that into its device itself, and yeah, that's that. The other good thing that we can do within the Digitakt via resampling is layering up different tracks to create a new sound. So I've got 5 and 6 that are spare. If I click on track number 5 and I pick a sample that I want, let's say that one, and then on this track 6 I'll just pick some noise from, so that noise is from one of my sample packs that's free to download. It's just basically circuit noise. I just want to use that noise and layer it with this just to show you an example of what you can do. You can layer up to 8 sounds, so you can really get into some sort of heavy sound design here. But I'm just going to use 2 tracks for now. So I'm going to try and make like a clap or a snare or something like that. So if, for example, this is going to be our initial hit, so the transient, this is what I want from this. So I want it quite loud, but I don't want any tail. I want a nice click. I want it nice and sharp. Like that maybe. That sounds alright. And then the noise is just the tail. So I don't want the whole time, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a step sequencer to hit and then use this. So something like that. Maybe that could do with a bit of... too long. And I think I want to just glue that together with this. Take it all the way down, see what it's doing. So I want that initial transient to come through, and then I'll just set the threshold back up. So we've got as layers, and we've layered them up, and we've put it through a compressor to try and glue it together. We've got as initial transient, and then we've got as tail with his noise. So now what we want to do with that is we want to re-record that, resample it. So we click on the recorder button, and what we'll notice is we want the output to be on the main left and right. So when we click on this, we'll see that we've got the signal coming in. If the signal's quite hot, then what we want to do is go to the internal mixer, and because we know we're on channel 5 and 6, we can turn these values down respectively. So all I'm going to do is just turn these down just a little bit. Or alternatively, we could have gone to the compressor page and done it that way. So if we go back to our page now, we'll see that our signal level is much more healthier. So what I want to do is just press yes. This is going to arm the track, and then what I want to do now is just press these at the same time. Now this is doing it manually, so what you could have is you could hit this one first and then this one, and it could have slight deviances. There's another way that you can do it by going into the step sequencer on each track and triggering each track on the one note. That way when you press play, you know they're going to hit at both at the same time. It's up to you what you want to do with that. You can either do it manually or you can do it that way. So we've got this set up now in our recorder page. We can go to the main. We've got our input coming in from the main left and right, so we can see that on the meter bar coming in. So what I want to do is just arm the track. I've also got it set up on the sequencer, so all I'm going to do is press play, wait until I can't hear anything, and then press yes to stop. It's going to normalize the track, and then I'm just going to take this and press function and yes until I can't hear the noise anymore, which is about there. I'm happy with that, so I am going to trim that, which is here. Just preview it again, and then I'm ready to save it. I'll save this as, just say snare, just put SNR 1, click yes, and then I'm going to reassign that sample to one of these two which I already used, which is going to be number 6 this time. That's done, and then I'm going to press function and no to discard that to take my recorder setting back to its normal state, and then from this I can then use that sample as a snare. I could then add different stuff to it, so like bitrate reduction to give it a bit more bite, bit of overdrive, or if that amplitude. So we can bring that into our productions here. So you've got 8 tracks available. You could have all sorts of, you could do anything with them. You could have chords, you could create sort of nice chord pads. You could have, if you had a note, let's say we recorded it in from the minitar, you could have that on the first 4 tracks, and then you could have this as your root note, this is maybe a third, a 5th higher via tuning it up to like a third, and you could create scales doing that. You could record that back into itself, and then you could use that what you've created to create a nice chord rhythmic pattern. There's all sorts of shit that you can do, but this has just been a tutorial really, or just to show you what is possible with recording audio into the Digitakt, recording it into its system, re-recording it, and doing whatever you want to do with it. So that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.